Hey, I just found this sub and I've become quite a believer since this encounter. I've been moderately open to the idea of other beings before this, be they worldly, extraterrestrial, or extra-dimensional in nature, before this occurred to me, but more in the, hey, wouldn't it be cool sort of way. I'm now actively looking to see if someone had ever seen anything similar. And so, here goes, as detailed as possible. I was in my early 20s when this happened, still living with my parents. Back then, I was used to driving around at night, listening to music, and just killing time, really. I grew up rurally and didn't have a large circle of friends, so I often had nothing better to do to get out of the house, and I just enjoyed cruising around. This night was different, as I'd had an argument with my father and had to leave the house just to clear my head. I decided on the way to grab a small flask of vodka at the gas station and just drive out to the village and look at the stars. The area I ended up parking at was surrounded by cornfields and small patches of woods. Very agricultural. And I could still make out the lights of the closest village in the distance and hear the hum of the freeway relatively close by. The last area you would expect to run into something unusual. Not very remote, no untouched wilderness. I drove off the main road, parked on the dirt road leading into a patch of forests. There was a large cornfield on my right, and then a patch of grassland also on the right. Just a meadow, no fencing or animals though. It was pitch black, so I left the car lights on to take a stroll, vodka flask in hand. I immediately felt nervous getting out of the car. There was kind of an eerie vibe to the area despite how mundane it looked. I was hyper aware of the sounds around me, the hum of the freeway and crickets chirping. All I wanted to do in that instance was to keep driving and just go home. But back then, I figured it was just me being a coward. And while there was no way that I would stay and stargaze in this mood, I figured I did owe it to myself to just go for a short jog towards that patch of woods, just to prove to myself that I wasn't being a big wimp. It hasn't occurred to me back then that my subconscious might have picked up on me being watched, because when I started to run towards the woods just at the edge of what my car lights illuminated, something broke out of the undergrowth and sprinted towards me. I was startled like this before, when it turned out it was a deer. This time, it wasn't. I nearly fell over as a seemingly naked man broke out of the forest and ran towards me. I stared in disbelief as I made out its features. It was humanoid, light skin-colored from what I could tell, very large, larger than I am, a good 2 heads taller. I'm 5'11", and it seemed very muscular. I didn't make out any hair or anything else. I don't recall if I jumped or tripped, but I wavered for a moment and had to catch my footing as I was so startled that I almost fell. Now, I think I remember it having larger, animal-like eyes, but I remember distinctly that it had no defined lips and a very short nose, mostly consisting of elongated slits. It circled around me. Later on, I figured it might not have wanted to directly walk into the light of my car, and it made a noise at me like a startled dog. Kind of a huff, but it felt very hostile. Then, it ran off, crossing the road into the cornfield with very large, seemingly confident struts. It was really fast and did not seem to be bothered by breaking straight through a cornfield. I'm not sure, but I also think it had exaggerated leg muscles on the back of its legs, despite being generally slender but of wiry strength, if that makes any sense. It took me a bit to gain my composure, and my hands were shaking all the way home. I also drove over a curb with too high speed and got a flat tire, which I noticed when I got home. A couple of notes. This was approximately 8 years ago. I'm bad with time, and it happened in Germany. I did have alcohol that I intended to drink, but did not get to it, so I was sober. Also, I don't do drugs, nor would I know of any drugs that could cause that kind of specific hallucination, but leave the user sober otherwise. 3. Since then, I had my doubts that if it might have been just a very tall person, just the logistics of something like this living undiscovered so close to civilization, and nobody ever saw it, really just seems unrealistic to me. Then again, very tall, deformed, naked people that can run extremely fast hiding near small German villages in Rhineland Falls seems unlikely too. I understand that its appearance might seem cliché, but maybe that's because I only saw it for a short period of time, and maybe it's also a cliché for a reason. And then an edit with 5. Full disclosure, I had another seemingly paranormal encounter when I was a kid, but that was of a completely different nature. And, well, I was like 8. So there is a remote possibility that I have a momentary lapse of sanity every other decade, although I'm not aware of any psychiatric condition like this. So, has anyone ever seen anything like this, or heard, or is there some urban legend I might have missed? I'd be interested to hear from you if this is the case. I, 15 female, was staying the night at my friend's house, who I'll call Katie, who is 14 and female. Me and Katie went on a walk at around 7:30 p.m. last night. The neighborhood we were walking in was in a very small, tight-knit, safe community, where everybody knows everybody. There are very few people in this neighborhood that Katie doesn't know. It was dark outside, and for a few seconds I saw a dead baby hanging from a tree. Now, I hallucinate often, so this wasn't a very big cause for concern for me, but the hallucination held a bit longer than they normally do, and it was more graphic than usual. I don't know if this is relevant to the story, I just wanted to say everything that happened. It might have been hanging by its neck, but I'm not sure. I didn't think much of it, and just moved on. Far past where I had hallucinated the baby, I saw a man standing at the end of the street. My stomach dropped as soon as I saw him. I don't know why I was so scared, but I tried to rationalize it and chalked it up to me being paranoid. Me and Katie were at the beginning of the street, so there was quite a bit of distance between us and the man. I told Katie there was a man at the end of the street, but she didn't really care. We moved on and walked into a park. While we were in the park, Katie was talking to me about something, but I wasn't really listening as I was trying to get a look through the fence to see if I could see the guy. I couldn't, and I assumed that he had moved and shrugged it off. Me and Katie started walking again, but I couldn't get over how scared I was. Katie had moved on and was talking about something, but in the back of my mind, I kept thinking about the man that I had seen. He was too far away for me to have known what he looked like. He was more of a silhouette at that point. Eventually, me and Katie left the park and started walking on the same street we were on before, and the man was at the same place he was when we had entered the park. But now, he was walking towards us. He was still more of a silhouette at this point. The pit of my stomach dropped. It was like a wave of dread that washed over me, and all I could think was, I gotta get out of here. Me and Katie started walking away a bit fast, and Katie didn't know why we were walking so fast, and I told her that the man was following us. As we started picking up speed, we turned a corner and walked for another 20 meters before he turned the corner as well, which means that he was walking pretty fast to be able to catch up to us like that. When I saw him, I started walking faster, and Katie matched my pace, even though she wasn't nearly as freaked out as I was. We kept walking at that pace for a while, and Katie started getting scared and grabbed onto my arm. I tried to reassure her that everything was okay as we walked, but he was still walking behind us, and he was walking in the dead center of the road. I looked behind me again and noticed that he was moving closer to us, but was still about 15 meters away. At this point, I told Katie to call her mom, which she did. I told her to put her mom on speaker, and then Katie told her mom, "I think someone's following us," loud enough for the man to hear, hoping that saying so would deter him from continuing to follow us. Her mom suggested that her dad pick us up, and we said yes. I was looking back at the man periodically throughout all of this to make sure that he was still a safe distance away. I suggested we stay on the phone with Katie's mom in case anything happened, and I looked back and saw that he was standing under a street lamp. He was between 5'11" and 6'2". He was wearing a gray sweater with dark pants. I didn't see any shoes, but it was freezing outside, so I don't know how he could have been barefoot. He was wearing a navy blue baseball cap, which casted a shadow on his face, so I couldn't see it at all. His arms were so long they went down to his knees, and his sweater didn't cover his forearms, which were black. His hands were some kind of claws that curled inward, and this is when I clued in on, hey, this guy might not be human. I know I said that I hallucinate sometimes, but whenever I do, it's a split second and then it goes away, or it's just a shadow. There's no way his arms were a hallucination. They were unwaveringly there the entire time that I looked at him. After I looked at him, I started walking as fast as I could, to the point where I was dragging Katie along with me. I was more scared than I had ever been in my entire life. I didn't know what that thing was or why it was following us, and at this point I realized I hadn't heard any footsteps the entire time it was following us. It might have been because it wasn't wearing shoes, but it was walking on pavement, so surely there would have been at least the quiet sound of footsteps. It was about 30 seconds before we saw the headlights of Katie's dad's car. He pulled up beside us, and I immediately felt all the fear I had go away and felt safe. Before I got in the car, I looked back at where the man was. He was gone. When I got in the car, Katie's dad said that he saw somebody about 10 meters away from us, which meant the man was getting a lot closer to us, but when he stopped the car, the man had disappeared completely. I don't know where he had gone, but I guessed that he must have rounded the corner we came onto the street from, which still didn't make sense as he would have had to run inhumanely fast to make it there. We drove around for a while after, and we never saw him again. I don't know where he went, as the only place for him to be able to go, where we wouldn't see him, would have been into somebody's house. When we got home and I got out of the car, my knees were weak and I felt like I was going to fall. I felt really wobbly, but I guessed it was the adrenaline wearing off. I asked Katie if she had felt any bad vibes from the man, or anything like I did, and she said that she didn't, and she was only scared because I was scared. I don't know what that man was, but I'm starting to think that he wasn't human. I came to this sub hoping somebody can give me any theories as to what it could have been, because I've got nothing. He had long arms, claw hands, no footsteps. He didn't really appear to have a face, and he disappeared out of thin air. Anyway, thanks for reading. Alright, I haven't told too many people this story because it's kind of silly. It happened maybe 15 years ago or so. I'm going to have to describe the area for this to really make sense, so bear with me. The place I was living in was a really old house that was haunted, but that's a story for another time. At the corner of what was the first paved road in town, and a dirt road that splits off the paved road with a few houses along it, and on the other side of the fork stays dirt for around a quarter of a mile, and ends at my dad's farm. In front of the house, across the street, is a set of train tracks, and another road. It used to be an intersection across the tracks, and a T-junction with another road, but they took out the crossing in the 70s. There are houses along one side. On the other is an old lot that used to be a granary, and an old, defunct water tower. The granary had been demolished by the time this happened, but the water tower was still standing. At night, my side of the road was dark, but the other side was well lit by a floodlight on a big storage building. It shone on an empty lot that had a few trees in it and was overgrown with grass. There was also a streetlight at the intersection. It looked super creepy. My kid said that she saw shadow people up there regularly. Her window faced the old intersection and lot. This happened probably around midnight or so. I decided to walk up to the 24-hour gas station to get a couple sodas. I usually crossed the tracks at the old intersection instead of walking up the road in front of my house, since that avoided a small but steep hill. As I was stepping onto the tracks, I saw something move in an empty lot. It looked like it could have been a person, darting very quickly behind one of the trees. It seemed suspicious, and we do have a few meth heads around. So I stood still and waited to see if there was someone in the lot. After what felt like a very long time, but was probably only a minute or so, it moved again, and then stepped out into the open. I could only see the shadow, though it looked very black, darker than the surrounding shadows. It was shaped, I swear, like the werewolf from the old Darkstalkers game. With the long, crooked nose, big paws, super skinny middle, and bushy tail, it snuck across the open area to hide behind another tree. It moved in an exaggerated way like a cartoon. I'd been surprised when I first saw it, but before I could really register it enough to feel anything close to scared, I made the connection with the shape. It just seemed ridiculous. I saw its nose poke out from behind the tree, and then it leaned out again with exaggerated movements. "I see you," I shouted. It ducked behind the tree again. I stood there for a while longer, but there was no further movement. It crossed the tracks and walked along the road by the lot. Everything seemed normal. I've seen a lot of weird things, but this was just... I still don't know what to quite make of it. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I remember one night there was a storm like no other. It was dark, the night outside being illuminated by the orange glow of lightning, followed by a grumbling, loud, booming crash. I was laying down in bed. Mind the fact that my head was next to a window, which I could see outside if I looked to the left. I was laying on my stomach, looking outside when I thought I saw something on the other side of the street. My room faced south towards another person's house, so I was looking west, across to the creek on the other side of the road. I thought I saw a bulky figure, but I thought that it was just some bulky tree material, or maybe some uncut brush. That all happened within a split second. The next fiery orange lightning strike was brighter, and the thunder louder this time. I thought I saw something standing on the curb by my house. At this point, I was pretty nervous, but thought maybe a tree limb had fallen. But now, I don't think tree limbs have humanoid-like appendages. I didn't think that when I was younger. The thunder and lightning stopped for a moment, but the rain was coming down harder than ever before. My stomach had to rest, and I felt like whatever it was would be gone. When the next lightning bolt struck down, it hit the neighbor's field across the creek. The field was maybe 500 cubic square feet, but that's not important. What I saw is what I'm worried about. There was a tall figure, covered in grass, mud, and twigs. It was moving past my window and going into my backyard. It rested its head as if it was supporting itself right on the window frame, right by my head. I covered my head with my blanket and wished that I could go to sleep, or that whatever I saw would be gone. The thunderclaps and lightning were deafening. The next morning, I didn't remember what happened, but when I went back around, I saw the muddy hand on the window frame and remembered the figure and the night. It has become a story that I will always remember. Now, I know it sounds cliche, but I believe something was outside. I believe that there was something. I just don't know what. I haven't heard of a figure like this, much less in northeast Kansas, the small town of Bonner Springs. Hello, first time posting. So I'm asking because I've searched the web and I've never found any other similar stories. I was living in a Baltic state at the time and was young, around 5 years old, no more than 7. I was asleep one night in a small bedroom with barely any walking space between a bunk bed and table, plus closet between the walkway. And I was asleep on the bottom and my sibling on the top bunk. It was summertime, and the window towards my feet was cracked open. Anyway, I woke up and saw a dark 6-inch-ish person walking towards the window holding a dim candle, I think in its left hand. At that point, I was sort of frozen in fear and was trying to pretend that I was still asleep, but peeking with my eyes, trying to control my breathing. So, after walking slowly towards the end of the bed, it turned back around, and at this point I was trying hard to stay calm. I remember swallowing or gulping a lot, and I could see it was some sort of robe that it was wearing with just darkness for its face. Now, since it was facing me and slowly walking towards me, I could see the candle better. Looked to be actual fire by candle. The fear was getting to me, and I closed my eyes and called for my mom to use the bathroom at the time. I was just scared of the dark, I guess. As I heard my mom get up from the other room, I peeked and saw the thing get under the bed by my feet. My mom opened the door and asked what I wanted. Her face just looked tired. I told her I needed to go to the bathroom, and immediately went to the foot of the bed to see where it went. There was just a bunch of books, and other cheap toys or things. Basically no way someone could have fit under there. I went to the bathroom, and got placed back to bed. I fell asleep again, and I would say maybe 30 minutes to an hour, after I woke up again, and saw the same thing walking towards me. No noise was made. I did have a rug in the walkway, and my sibling had been asleep on the top bunk the whole time. I felt that scared, stuck feeling again. And as it crept slowly towards me with the candle, I closed my eyes tightly, and reopened them after about 10 seconds, and it was gone. I never saw anything resembling that thing ever since. And P.S. That third world country doesn't have Halloween or is big into costumes, so that's one thing I ruled out. Second thing, I didn't know what I saw until immigrating to the US and watching a Simpsons episode, and I saw the same exact thing in one of the presumably Halloween episodes. Sorry for the long post, and before y'all ask, no, there was no scythe. Hey there, friends. I hope you enjoyed this collection of humanoid encounters. Not a topic I get to do very often, but one that I really do enjoy doing. So, if you enjoyed it, please do let me know, because I would love to do more, to be completely honest with you. So, yeah. I want to make sure y'all enjoy them, though, before I do, because if you think they're stupid and don't like them anymore, then I don't want to, cover topics y'all don't like. That's not fair to you, and it's not nice to me. Anyway, yeah. If you guys did enjoy it and would like more content like this, please do remember to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. That makes you part of the Nevermore. You can also support me by following me on any of the social media or supporting me on Patreon or Ko-fi. All patrons get early access to all my videos, as well as coupons to my merch store. 15% off permanent coupon for all Patreons. You also get things like potential merch depending on your level. $6 gets you stickers and other merch. $10 gets you a poster, etc. $20 gets you, I don't know, I might just send you the keys to my car at that point. So, if you all did enjoy this and would like more content and want to support me, please do consider that. Channel members will exist in the near future. So, thank you guys very much for listening. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Tomorrow is Monday, but, it's going to be as good as you make it. I will see you all in the next video. Much love, and until then, sleep well.